What's up, fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, and today I want to talk about something a little different, not exactly book related. So in this video, I want to talk about a D&D real live play podcast, I believe they're called, and that is Dungeons and Daddies. Dungeons and Daddies, not a BDSM podcast.
Once we get started,
relationships are built on trust. That's what you tell me. You should trust that we're going to buckle up.
I'm trying to let them make their own decisions. So it's called free range parenting.
I stare at the mirror for a very long time, and then finally I just start driving without saying a word.
Even if you've never played D&D before, I think that this is an amazing story told by these comedian actors voicing these different characters. And if you maybe are not that into audiobooks, this is what started me. Before I got into audiobooks, I started with something like this, and I've recently just started Dungeon Crawler Carl. I know that's been blowing up online, and I feel like for book fans that have not given the podcast thing a try, you may find a lot of similarities between Dungeon Crawler Carl and this podcast. So Dungeons and Daddies, not a BDSM podcast, is a podcast about four dads from our world flung into the Forgotten Realms on a quest to save their sons. But why do I think this series would work for fantasy readers and book fans? Well, on the surface level, Dungeons and Daddies is a very comedic, satiric, and comical tale. But as the story progresses, you get thought-provoking explorations on generational trauma and a lot of examinations on fatherhood and, toxic masculinity. And all of these themes are not kind of brushed over just to seem more relatable. They're actually given depth and time to breathe. Okay, so that may make it sound like this is this super deep podcast, and it is later on towards the end of the series. The emotional high notes are soaring at the end of the season. I've only listened to season 1, but I think there's 3 seasons out so far, each following a different campaign. So I believe you can start wherever. I highly recommend starting with season 1 because I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. But, aside from these kind of deeper themes, this story is so comedic. I laughed out loud every single episode at least once, usually way more than once. And I'm not usually someone who laughs out loud when I read books or even when I listen to audiobooks. But you have 4 amazing comedians and a DM that just rolls with it. And if you're worried, if you've tried Critical Role and which I need to get into Critical Role, but let's say you've tried Critical Role and you get bored when the encounters happen, when the action encounters, when the dice are rolling, when combat is occurring. This real live play podcast is one in which the narrative being conveyed takes precedent over the action. Sometimes Anthony will gear up our characters for an action set piece only to have some emotional journey completely derail the action storyline, and usually the combat is story first. Like, it doesn't feel like people are playing a game. It feels like 4 dumb stads are trying to solve a situation and save their sons. And I thought it was amazing. It's 120-ish episodes. And in these episodes, we follow 4 characters. So first and foremost, we have Daryl Wilson, the football-loving, stay-at-home coach dad of the group.
You feel with more certainty that gravity exists, that up is up and down is down, that you have not been a good father to your child.
Daryl Wilson takes his sunglasses that are on the top of his baseball cap and put them over his eyes so nobody can see him crying because he is absolutely weeping.
Ron remains unchanged. He already was certain of this information.
He is also a barbarian when he enters the Forgotten Realms, voiced by Matthew Arnold. Now, I thought the character of Daryl was very flat in one note at the beginning of the series, and by the end, he's one of the most nuanced characters in the whole series. He is so hilarious. He is so funny, and he, even in his comedic moments, thematically, he also shines a light on the pressures of masculinity and the pressures of being the best man you can be and the societal standards, and in the process is just being a hilarious character you endear yourself to. Next up, we have Henry Oak, voiced by Will Campos, who's my personal favorite character.
Gentlemen, why are we sneaking around here? I mean, we may disagree with Lance's business practices, but, this is you of all people, I feel like would have been accepting of other cultures, and I feel like we should go talk like a gentleman here and talk like a businessman. So I start walking towards the front door.
Okay, I kind of let loose a little bit on Daryl here for a second.
Okay.
Henry Oak's fragile temper cracks for a minute, and I say, "Listen up, you big alpha jock piece of shit, bozo! These are fucking kids we're trying to get back, so fucking cool it with your fucking dick swaggering nonsense. I'm not having none of it. We are going to be cool, and we are going to be calm, and we are going to fucking get our kids back, and then we can worry about your fucking my dad's words, honor, dick bullshit, mister. So fucking cool it."
He's the granola-loving, crunchy-munchy, Birkenstock rockin' hippie dad. And Henry Oak is an absolute gem of a character. He's a pacifist, but he will go to whatever lengths it takes to get his twin boys back. And I thought he was awesome. Will Campos, I think, is so acerbic, so sardonic, he's just such a smartass, and I absolutely love his comedic timing. Next up, we have Ron Stampler, voiced by Beth May. This is the stepfather / rogue of the group.
Ron is subtly looking for a place to maybe vomit in if the road gets any rockier.
He's a businessman, and this is definitely the fan favorite playable character of Dungeons and Daddies. Everybody loves Beth May's Ron Stampler for very good reason. He's hilarious, much like the other two characters that I've mentioned. There's a lot of depth to him, and he examines what fatherhood means probably the best out of every character in the series. And I think that was an intentional choice. Even though he's the stepdad of the group, he really is like just an awesome dad and just an awesome character. Then we have Glenn Close, which admittedly was not my favorite of the four, but I still really enjoyed him. At first, I thought he was just not my type of character, but as the story goes on, he gets his own depth as well.
Nick is standing around impatient. I'm definitely just like leaning back like, yo, man,
Okay.
play cool, dog.
So yeah, Glenn is leaning back, and when you drive up, you see that Glenn's kid is definitely smoking a blunt.
You excited about that game there, Grant? And what? 1 second. What the? Hey, Grant, turn away there for a second. I roll down the window.
He continues to keep looking at his phone. Nothing changes.
Good, Grant. Keep doing that. Hey, Glenn.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Are you my ride?
Yeah. Can you come here? Can we talk for a second? I think your kid is smoking, right there on the grass right now.
Rock and roll, man.
As you turn to see him, your son just like goes, hey, and like waves at you and continues smoking. No shame, no embarrassment.
Oh, rock on, man. I think I expected him
Glenn,
to
you
get
can't let
into
your
that
kid
a
walk
little
over
bit.
you, man. You gotta go tell him to put that thing out. I ain't having that in my car.
While he is probably my weakest of the four in terms of what I care for, I ended up really loving Glenn Close more and more as the story went on and on and on. I think because he becomes more and more OP through the story kind of made me less like... I like how the other actors weren't really playing the game. Like they were just trying to tell a story. But I think that they needed Freddie Wong as Glenn Close, kind of bringing their story back on track, explaining the mechanics. Plus, I believe he did a lot of the edits and a lot of the skits before the episodes, which are absolutely hilarious. And then Anthony Birch is the Dungeon Master or Daddy Master. And these 5 individuals really crafted an absolutely beautiful story that is so funny and so heartwarming and so heartbreaking at times. These episodes are available on Spotify. I believe they're on Apple Music for free. You can get more episodes and extra added tidbits on their Patreon, but I haven't done their Patreon. I've just watched the main episodes. Before I peace out, I just want to explain kind of what the plot is about, but I think if you go into this without any information, you'll still be able to understand what's going on. It's a pretty easy series to jump onto. But in this series, we have the Doodlers, as they're about it. The Doodlers is the name of the mascot of these 4 dads' children's soccer team. So they all pile into Daryl's SUV and they go on their way to a soccer game. And then a portal opens up to the realm of Faerun, which is the setting of Dungeons and Dragons, The Forgotten Realms. And the dads arrive there and their sons are gone and they go on a quest to save their lost sons. And it is an absolutely beautifully told tale. There's a lot of NPCs that I thought were very memorable. I just want to go over those two. NPCs that didn't feel like NPCs. They felt like, members of our crew. And that was Peyton. Peyton is probably on that Ron Stampler level of just an absolute fan favorite type character. Absolutely loved Peyton. We also have Walter the Immoral. We also have the sons of each of our dads. And those are the characters to me that felt the most, Scam Likely. That was a great character. So there are a lot of NPCs that really feel like grounded characters that have their own stories going on outside of our main characters. And that's what I really loved about Anthony Birch as a DM. This is all coming from someone who's never played D&D. But each of the characters within his campaign, within the Dungeons and Daddy podcast, didn't feel like they were just waiting for our characters to come along. They felt like they had their own life going on. They had their own aspirations. They had their own schedule. And then our characters just happened to derail whatever they had going on. Nobody's waiting around for our characters to come. A lot of the NPCs have their own agency and their own story going on, and I really like that. I don't know if that's common amongst other D&D podcasts. If you've listened to any other D&D podcasts, let me know. I hear Dimension 20 is really good. I hear Not Another D&D podcast is really good, and I started Critical Role and I want to continue more. Peace.